If you experience even one of these symptoms, your circulatory system is crying out for attention. Extendivite is a natural solution to help improve your overall health. Extendivite is not your average heart tonic. To order, call 1 877 928 8822 or visit heartdrop.com or find us on Amazon.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, the history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Friday, May 24th, 2019. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Heading into this weekend, the Memorial Day weekend, a long weekend. And we've got a lot to talk about. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Sam is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments, questions, and observations. A couple of quick program notes here, of course. This being Friday, the lovely Lady Claire will be joining us in hour number 3 with her unique perspective on the world. And also because it is Memorial Day, RBN is giving all of the hosts and technical people Memorial Day off, so it's going to be rebroadcast, but we will be back live on Tuesday. And hopefully nothing really newsworthy is going to happen on Memorial Day, but you never know with John Bolton out there trying to figure out some way to get war with Iran going. So speaking of which, apparently the United Arab Emirates Foreign Ministry did not issue any details about the attack on 4 commercial vessels near its territorial waters back on the 12th, except to describe it as a sabotage operation, which was very ineffective because the damage was rather minor. And already, apparently, Bolton is trying to involve the MEK for a new false flag, and the word is already out there. In fact, it was even on Fox News this morning about, oh, it had to be Iran, it had to be Iran, it had to be Iran. So I think they botched that one. I think when they didn't wind up with an oil tanker just burning out of control, which makes for great video, they called that one off because, you know, a little tiny dent in a ship is not going to motivate the American people to say, yes, let's go after Tehran here. Different point of view is coming in from Sputnik News saying that mostly this is all psychological warfare and that the U.S. is unlikely to initiate war with Iran. And I hate to basically challenge Sputnik News, but I do think, yes, the U.S. will initiate war with Iran. They'll do it the way they have done before with some kind of a false flag. They have been ramping up to war with Iran for years. The momentum is building. They're not going to back down now. They're just looking for a way to make it look like Iran struck first, to get the American people all riled up and angry for going off to war. Same thing they did with the USS Maine, same thing they did with USS Maddox, same thing they did with USS Lusitania, or was that RMS Lusitania? It's the same pattern over and over again. World Trade Towers, which is what launched this whole period of warfare. So Sputnik, I hope Sputnik News is right. I don't think they are here. Now, an interesting story has surfaced because apparently, you know, we're all being told that Iran is now our enemy and we shouldn't be doing anything. But apparently, Senator Dianne Feinstein hosted the Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif for dinner just a few weeks ago. And Politico reported on this, saying this is a bit unusual for a former chair of the Intelligence Committee and a member of the Senate minority to dine out with the acting foreign minister of an adversary of the United States. And Politico, with its normal tendency to understate things, basically they're saying this is pretty much unprecedented. And how is this not colluding with America's enemies? So what's going on in the back channels here between Dianne Feinstein and Iran? Over in Iraq, they apparently have finished up their military operation against the Islamic State group in Salahuddin. And apparently Salahuddin's Operation Command, backed by the province's police forces and Axis Command, carried out a military operation to cleanse the island of Salahuddin of the remnant of ISIS and impose security and stability. So during the operation, they killed 11 terrorists, discovering 13 hideouts, 16 explosive belts. They destroyed 2 booby-trapped vehicles and 3 tunnels, in addition to finding 2 explosive labs and 11 tanks, 2 for water and 9 for fuel. And they found other stuff: shielding plates, grenades, a hand grenade, 2 motorcycles, a gas cooker, 2 rams with different capacities, a cell phone, and 6 vessels containing explosive materials. So things are still going on over there. Over in Israel, according to the United Nations, 1,700 young Gazans are facing amputation, mainly of their legs, in the next 2 years. They're among the 7,000 unarmed Palestinians in Gaza shot by Israeli snipers over the last year. Now, they're not allowed to leave Gaza to seek medical care that could restore their legs. And Gaza's hospitals have been pretty much, if they're not rubble, they're out of materials, they're out of supplies. They can't do the kind of delicate reconstructive bone surgery that would be needed to save the legs. So the only other option is amputation. It's just like in the American Civil War. If you got shot in the leg, all they could do was amputate. And we're talking pretty much mostly nonviolent protesters. And international law prohibits using live fire against unarmed civilians unless the police or soldiers are in imminent danger of death. Well, that's not the case in Gaza. The snipers are firing from fortified bunkers 100 yards away. So a UN investigation of 189 killings during the first 9 months of the protests found Israeli forces may have committed war crimes. Unfortunately, you're paying for all this. Every year, the United States sends $3.8 billion directly to the Israeli military, no strings attached. That's the money they're spending to buy the ammunition, in particular, these butterfly bullets that fold outward on impact to inflict maximum damage. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Now, there's a bit of a fight brewing over Israel's Settler Railway. And it's a light rail system that Israel intends for it to link Jerusalem and the illegal settlements all over the West Bank. It is seen as a sign of the oppression of the Palestinian people. They're not going to be allowed to ride on it. And of course, it means commandeering more Palestinian land for the rail right-of-way. So all of a sudden, a lot of international companies that were being approached to help build this railway system, they're pulling out. And apparently in France, train manufacturer Alstom is withdrawing from the deal. A Greek-led consortium failed to submit a bid. And again, all those settlements in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, are a war crime. And more people are saying, I don't want to be part of this. This looks bad to the rest of the world. I don't want to be part of this. I don't want other people canceling contracts for trains with me because I built a train in the West Bank. Maybe the more practical thinking that's going on here. Over in North Korea, they're saying that talks will not resume unless the United States changes its position on disarmament. And remember when the discussion first started between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un, it was all about North Korea's nuclear weapons and getting rid of them. Then Trump moved the goalpost and started talking about the long-range missiles. And it was at that point talks ground to a halt. And the U.S. is claiming that North Korea was making excessive demands for sanctions relief. So that looks to be stalled over there. Again, negotiation means give and take. Give a little bit, get a little bit. Give a little bit, get a little bit. Donald Trump, unfortunately, has adopted the Israeli style of diplomacy. Give us everything we want, then we'll negotiate. And it doesn't really play all that well. Okay, article that came out of FFF.org, and it is a reminder about Remember the Maine, also the Arizona, also the Maddox, and like some of my own articles at whatreallyhappened.com, it goes down the list of all the times the United States government and the corporate media have hoaxed the American people into supporting wars. They hoaxed the American people into the Spanish-American War, claiming a Spanish mine blew up the USS Maine. It subsequently came out that no, it was a coal bunker fire. Roosevelt got us into World War II claiming Pearl Harbor was a surprise. No, it was not. He goaded the Japanese into it. Wilson got us into World War I with the sinking of the Lusitania, which was smuggling weapons to Great Britain and was therefore a legitimate target of war. And again, President Johnson was able to escalate the Vietnam War by claiming an attack on the USS Maddox, which turned out not to have happened. Now, all of those incidents happened at a time when Congress still had the authority to declare war. In this day and age, unfortunately, Congress has abandoned that. With that authorization for the use of military force all the way back in 2001, and it was originally intended just for Iraq. But we have had president after president since then resurrect the AUMF and say, well, I need to use this to go into Syria. I need to use this to go into Afghanistan. I need to use this to go into whatever. But getting the American people to go along with more war, that's another matter entirely, and that's why I'm expecting there to be some kind of a false flag. Okay, over at the UN Institute for Disarmament Research, their director, Renata Dwan, warned that all states with nuclear weapons are pushing for modernization programs, while arms control regulations are changing or fading, or arms control treaties are simply being dropped. And saying that the risk of nuclear war is now the highest it's ever been since World War II. And as a result, since last year, the doomsday clock over at the Bulletin of Nuclear Scientists, it's set to 2 minutes until midnight, something not seen since 1947. Okay. Now, Adam Duygu, a military analyst from Turkey, has posted commercial satellite imagery of Russia's new combat stealth drone on a flight line around the same date President Putin inspected the country's latest warplanes at the 929th Chkalov State Flight Test Center in Russia's Astrakhan region. Now, analysts are saying that this new drone, dubbed the Hunter B, is a stealth-heavy unmanned combat aerial vehicle being developed by Sukhoi as a sixth-generation aircraft. Now, the advantage of an unmanned combat drone should be obvious. Even the best-trained, best-conditioned pilot blacks out at a 9G turn. And you can build a drone to go in a much tighter circle than that. Now, the United States also has a sixth-generation stealth combat drone. It's the XQ-58A. It's called the Valkyrie. But they're already admitting up front it can't do air-to-air combat, and its weapons carrying capacity is somewhat limited. But they're saying they're very inexpensive at only $3 million apiece, but built-in numbers, they could be used for one-time only suicide missions deep into enemy territory. Okay, we're going to take a phone call now from Tony in Puerto Rico. Aloha, Tony. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, aloha, Mike. I was reading an article on the internet the other day that stated that the hardliners in Iran wants to go to war with the United States. But their logic is, if they don't do it now, they're going to do it later. What do you think? They're making a big mistake or what?
It's really hard to say. We often hear that rationale applied to a lot of different areas about, we should do it now so we don't have to do it later. But I think that's more a rhetorical argument than a practical one.
I hear you, yeah, because their logic being, look, we're being starved to death with these sanctions, and sooner or later they're going to attack us when we have nothing. Let's fight now when we got the muscle. So that's their logic.
I'm very alarmed at the rhetoric that's coming out right now, because it's actually out of character for Iran. And we also need to be very careful that we're not being made fools of again by memory, which has a tendency to take any... we're talking about Iran here, right?
Yeah, Iran, definitely.
Yeah. Well, remember, MEMRI is this Middle East Media Research Institute. It's an Israeli propaganda front, and what they do is provide free translations of Arabic media articles to the Western media, but they're very often skewed and mistranslated. And one of the famous incidents about that had to do with Ahmadinejad, who actually said, one day Israel will vanish from the pages of history, and MEMRI translation said, we will wipe Israel from the face of the map, which is a completely different statement.
Okay.
So we have to be careful, because, again, some of the rhetoric we're seeing coming out of Iran these days, it almost seems a little out of character for them.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
All right, we're going to let you go. Getting on back to the wars here. Now, Russia's approach to weaponry has traditionally been lots of inexpensive weapons instead of just a few really huge ones. And Russia is adding warships to its navy much faster than the U.S. And the reason is very simple. While the U.S. is pouring billions and billions of dollars into these giant aircraft carriers like the USS Gerald Ford, the Russians are building corvettes. This is a class of warships between 500 and 1,000 tons. Not only are they small, they are cheap. The newest class, the Karakurt, sets the Russian budget back just over $30 million at the current exchange rates. It's quite a difference from the $14 billion that's gone into the Gerald R. Ford. So they may seem like puny little vessels, except here's the thing. They can hit an enemy surface ship from 4 times the distance that an Arleigh Burke or Ticonderoga class can. So Russia's thinking smart. They're just not out there with this attitude of, well, if we just shovel the money into the fire faster than the enemy, we'll prevail. I don't think it'll work. Apparently, in April of last year, there was a little bit of an embarrassment for the United States, and the United States hasn't admitted it. And for a while, Russia sat on it as well, but now they've gone public with it. And apparently, a Russian frigate operating in the Mediterranean, the Admiral Essen, was able to detect and track a U.S. Ohio-class SSBN nuclear ballistic missile submarine. Now, this probably rattled a lot of people, because the entire doctrine around the Ohio class is they're just a hole in the water and they cannot be detected. And apparently the Admiral Essen did so, whether they have some new sonar technology like ambient sonar, which was coming on, I think, about 5 years ago. But however it is, they were apparently able to detect and chase this submarine all around the Mediterranean for a period of 2 hours. They didn't do a hold down on it. That would have provoked something. But yeah, if they can find those Ohio class, that really is a game changer. Okay, turning to our domestic politics. Over the last few days, we have seen this little bit of a kerfuffle between Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi regarding this meeting that happened Wednesday morning, where Pelosi and Schumer came on into the Oval Office to talk about infrastructure with Trump. Now, Pelosi's version is that Trump just erupted at her and said, you got to end all these investigations. And when Pelosi said, no, you're guilty of a cover-up, that Trump basically threw a tantrum and stormed out. And ever since then, Pelosi's been saying the tantrum proves he's mentally unstable. Well, apparently White House staffers are now coming forward and saying, no, it didn't happen that way at all. Pelosi goaded Trump trying to get a reaction. Got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And I have an idea for this Memorial Day weekend. How about if everybody listening to this broadcast buys one less six-pack of beer and instead sends that money on in to Republic Broadcasting? And of course, the postal address to do that is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation or pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times. The network thanks you. Okay, before we go back to the phones here, just got an interesting email from somebody. They have a relative who has become an Army recruiter. Wasn't a job they wanted. They were ordered to do it. And apparently, over the last 4 months, has not signed up a single person. So it looks like the young people are waking up to the realization, even if there are no other jobs out there, if you sign up for the military, there's a good chance you're going to get shot at. And that's a depressing prospect for ambitious young people. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Mark in North Carolina, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Well, two things now, what you just mentioned about the recruiting. But first of all, people got to remember something about, the size of the ships and everything like that. These, basically what we've got out there, floating dinosaurs today. World War II, at the beginning of World War II, Germans didn't have anywhere near the naval power of the British. British were the naval power of the day.
Yes.
And they had the biggest, supposedly baddest ships and all that. Germans had those two little pocket battleships, the Bismarck and the Graf Spee.
Well, wait a minute. The thing is, the Bismarck changed the balance of power, because like these Russian corvettes, the Bismarck could fire on the British warships before the British warships could get close enough to fire on the Bismarck. And it was just this. Yeah. And it was just this incredible stroke of luck where the Bismarcks, and I don't know why Germany did this, Bismarck's rudders were made out of wood, and I think it was either a plane or a bomb crashed into the stern of the Bismarck and jammed the rudders into the ship's screws so it couldn't maneuver anymore. And so she just had to sit there while the British pounded it to death.
Yeah, but at that time, the British had them surrounded, and they had one ship after another. But when it came down to the battle with the Hood,
yes,
one shot, the Hood went again. It was like something like, I think, 15 miles or something like that. And like you just said, the Germans had these guns that could hit a lot further. And that's what this reminds me of what you were telling me about the Russians today, with their smaller ships against our dinosaurs. You'd think people would learn from history. We shouldn't be preparing for war anyway, but we're going to do it. At least have the weapons that you're going to need, not just to spend on the military industrial complex and you're getting nothing out of it. And that brings me to the other point about the recruiting. There's no way we're going to be even if Russia doesn't get involved. And I don't think they would. I think Putin would just supply the Iranians with weapons. He's not going to risk the planet for this. But if we're going to go to a war with just Iran alone, you're going to need a draft. There's no way we could invade the place. Even if we just decide to bomb them with planes, they'll shoot down a lot of those planes, and they'll incapacitate that whole Gulf there. What do you call it again? The whole Persian Gulf. We won't be able to ship any oil, nothing. And eventually, you'd have to launch an invasion, and that would be almost impossible. It's a very mountainous country. The people, despite what a lot of us are told, the people love their country. They're patriotic. They may not be too happy about some of the, being a theocracy today, but it's not a theocracy the way Saudi Arabia is a theocracy either. And they're ancient people. They're Persians. Thousands of years ago, they were the premier power in the world.
Yes.
They're not going to just, fold like, Iraq. It's not going to be that easy. They're not flat like Iraq is. They're much bigger, larger population, and they're better armed today. So, they better know what they're doing, because, like I said, you're going to have a draft, and you got a draft. And like I said,
that's when the American people will really wake up.
Exactly. I don't think Russia is really an enemy. But if they were an enemy, and if I was Putin and I was thinking like this, I'd say go right ahead, and then have your draft. He knows the history of this country. He knows he was old enough during the Vietnam War and all that. I don't know if he may have been a cadet in part of the military. I don't think he was in KGB yet, but he knows the history. He's a historian anyway, as well as a chess player and a judo master. He knows what happened to this country during the Vietnam War, the drafts and all that. There would be riots. There would be riots that make the Vietnam War look tame.
Yeah, it
On
really
top of
would.
that, once you got these soldiers they would rebel.
All right.
And
Well,
they would
Mark,
be-
I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be back with another phone call after these few words.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, 2, keep it today.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And before we go back to the phones here, and with reference to Mark's phone call, during World War II, one of the areas where German technology really did stand out was artillery. They had metallurgy and precision machining that Britain and the United States couldn't match. And they built some fantastic guns, like those on the Bismarck. Perhaps the most famous were the so-called Paris guns, the siege guns that had an 81-mile range. So you just think about that one for a bit. Okay, back to the phones here and to Steve Elkins. Aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, Mike, I was scouting around on the news a little bit today, and I had to see what the talking heads on CNN and MSNBC were saying. And, of course, they had a talking head that, of course, they hate Trump on CNN. So they had this Representative Mike Quigley, a Democrat from Illinois, on. And evidently he's part of the intelligence community, a new group they've put together to investigate Donald Trump. And he mentioned something about Donald Trump seeing on an article on Breitbart that evidently there was some wiretapping in the Trump Tower. And he was quick to say there was no truth to that, but I thought for some reason there was actual proof that the Trump Tower, they found wiretaps and bugs.
Yeah,
in
they
the Trump
did.
Tower. Am I correct or am I wrong?
Yeah, no, you're right. They did find taps and yeah. I mean, everybody's trying to keep the lid on this thing because it's going to turn out to be worse than Watergate.
Okay, so it was an outright lie. He lied about it then. Okay.
Ooh, imagine my shock.
I thought they did find some taps, wiretaps also in the Trump Tower, so I'm correct. Okay.
Yep, you're correct.
That is it for me, Mike. Have a great weekend.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And the phone lines are open. Okay, Donald Trump yesterday granted Attorney General William Barr new powers to review and potentially release classified information related to the origins of the Russia investigation or the Russia hoax. And this is a move aimed at accelerating Barr's inquiry into whether U.S. officials improperly surveilled Trump's 2016 campaign and then after he won the election continued to surveil his transition into the White House. Now, apparently Trump has effectively declassified all the documents, so now if things are not released, it falls on Attorney General William Barr, who's now the cover-up artist here. So Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said that Trump is delegating to Barr the full and complete authority to declassify documents relating to the probe, which would ease his efforts to review the underpinnings of the investigation. Now, a lot of people are hoping that that Bucket 5 will be out very, very soon. This is supposedly the exculpatory information collected by the FBI that was withheld from the FISA court when they went in there with that Steele dossier, which was a complete hoax. They walked into the FISA court with a document that was a lie to get a warrant. And they had in their possession at the time information that would have caused the FISA court to say, no, none of this is real. So that needs to come on out here. Now, Trump has issued orders to the FBI and CIA to fully cooperate with Barr. Good luck on that one. Both with the FBI and the CIA, there's a long history of just ignoring the President of the United States of America. And I think probably the best known example is when John F. Kennedy wanted to transfer authority for covert military action away from the CIA and back to the Pentagon, and it was never implemented. Everybody just sat there and said, I don't think so. I don't think so. The problem is people get that high in the government. They think they know what's best, and they forget there is a chain of command that has to be respected in the civilian government just as stringently as the chain of command in the military, or it's all going to descend into chaos, which is what we have today. Now, California Democratic Representative Adam Schiff, who's out there in a Twitter storm right now over trying to impeach Donald Trump, he's calling this investigation by Attorney General Barr into the origins of the Russian probe un-American. It's un-American to try and find out how this Steele dossier got written and who paid for it, and just how it came to be that the previous presidential administration was spying on the opposition campaign in 2016. So the rhetoric is climbing up there. I can understand why they're scared. This thing is going to start unraveling. We've got a little less than 2 years for this all to really unravel. And I imagine that Trump's campaign advisors are saying, you want the really big revelations to hit just at the start of primary season. Now, on Thursday's broadcast of the Rachel Maddow Show, as if anybody's still watching that, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler stated that Special Counsel Robert Mueller wants to testify privately, but is willing to make a public opening statement and then have the transcript of his testimony released to the public. It seems an odd request, but I think they may go along with it. The question is, will there be some creative editing between what Mueller actually says and what is in the final released transcript? So I'm a little concerned about that. All right, Wednesday there was this New York federal judge who ruled that the Trump administration had to comply with 2 subpoenas from the House Financial Services and Intelligence Committee. And it turns out this judge, District Judge Edgardo Ramos, was appointed by Barack Obama, and he donates heavy to big-name Democrats, including 2 who are currently sitting on those committees. Now, in a situation like that, judges have a responsibility to recuse themselves if there's a conflict of interest, and this judge did not. So there is an anchor point for Trump's lawyers to go back on in and say, no, this ruling is invalid. The judge has a conflict of interest. There's a new report out that reveals that 2/3 of Federal Trade Commission officials who are looking at product labeling, enforcing net neutrality, or what passes for today, either worked for the corporations they're supposed to be regulating before entering the agency or soon after the end of their term. Revolving doors again. Okay. So getting on to the world of sanctions, article that came on out of Russia Insider. Sanctions are a bitch. U.S. refiners importing Russian oil like mad. And the market needs to be fed. There has to be oil, there has to be gas, there has to be diesel, there has to be jet fuel. And refiners will buy whoever has the best cargo at the best price. It is only politicians who don't understand you cannot dictate to the markets, even though that's obviously what Trump is trying to do. So now refiners in the U.S. have been under pressure with rising oil prices, but Russian oil isn't brought in to supply the tight gasoline market. Russian Urals grade is considered heavy sour, which is better for refining into diesel and heavier grades of fuel. Over in Europe, they're getting low on gas, and Russians and Americans are racing to fulfill that demand. So there's this competition for a stake in the European gas market. It's heating up this year, and the outcome will have a long-lasting effect. There are 2 interconnected but separate developments having an impact on Europe's energy imports. On the one hand, the shale revolution in the U.S. is producing massive amounts of natural gas, which is supercooled as liquefied natural gas and shipped overseas. Really, I heard that shale wasn't producing the volume they expected it would. On the other hand, Europe's longtime supplier Gazprom is working on additional pipeline infrastructure such as Nord Stream 2 and Turkstream to secure its market share in the wake of increased competition. Now, the pipelines, once built, are able to deliver a higher volume of product at a lower cost. That's one area in which the United States has a disadvantage. They have to send their oil and gas by ship to other countries here. Another story out here that there is more and more talk floating around that China might actually invoke the rare earth element option in the trade war. That they're going to reach a point where they're going to tell the United States, you can't have any more. You're embargoed, totally. And while the United States does have its own rare earth element resources, they are not sufficient to meet the needs of the U.S. corporations, especially the military-industrial complex, which uses up a lot of these rare earth elements. What a mess they have made of everything, with all this chest thumping and bullying, and you've got to do what... This government ran this economy right off the rails, and they think a war is going to solve it, or at least distract us all away from it, because after all, that's what worked in big mistake number 1 and big mistake number 2. But I don't think it's going to work this time, because the American people are much more sophisticated, knowledgeable, aware of the machinations of government. Deutsche Bank is planning to cut their U.S. equities business. That signals a lack of confidence. And yesterday, President Trump authorized the Department of Agriculture to give $16 billion to U.S. farmers suffering from the Chinese tariffs, saying that his administration is fighting for farmers on every front. Well, that's all well and good, but we need another few $1 billion to get in there to those Great Plains areas and get them properly drained, so those farmers can start planting food to sell to us here in America. There's a big mess coming over there. More subprime profit machine hiccups. Apparently, credit card charge-offs are starting to rise across the banking system. I don't know, whoever came up with subprime, it probably sounded really good in the country club, but it is a disaster. It was a disaster for the mortgages in 2008. It's a disaster for car loans right now. Apparently, they were giving credit cards to people that were subprime. They're now defaulting. Anyway. All right, Trump is planning a new executive order to help lower health care costs. This is an all-out offensive to lower health care costs in the U.S., which is something he said he was going to deal with when he campaigned in 2016. So glad he's finally getting to it. Meanwhile, the Democrats are still dithering over Medicare for all. Okay, we're going to grab a phone call from Al in Canada. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. This trade war going on with China. Obviously, this stuff escalates. I mean, look what's going on with Iran. I mean, at what point are the other countries in this world going to say, enough is enough of this stuff?
It's already happening. I mean, you've got the rise of BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperative Organization, the Asian Investment Infrastructure Bank. The global economy, very slowly, because these things take time, but the global economy is starting to reorganize itself. And in the middle of it, there'll be a big hole where the United States banks used to be, because fewer and fewer countries are going through the U.S. dollar as an exchange currency. They're doing direct currency exchanges. And so, yeah, this is a suicidal policy on the part of the U.S.
Well, it seems like it is, but at the same time, I mean, Donald Trump, he can't be that stupid. He's dealt with banks all his life. He has to realize that, this is going to happen. People are just going to dump the dollar, and they're doing it.
Well, dealing with banks is not the same as dealing with foreign governments, and Trump is turning out to be a very weak president. He's easily manipulated, and he's being talked into doing these things by individuals or entities who are only seeing their best interests in front of them, and they're not really thinking about the big, broad picture, which is really, I think, in my opinion, what the president's job ought to be, looking at the overview and saying, okay, this may be good for you, but it's not good for these other portions of our country.
Mike, with what you just said, you're talking about a lot about Pompeo, I think, and Bolton. I mean, how can what they're doing be in their best interest unless they're being paid to do it. And even if they are being paid, I mean, don't they have kids and grandkids and all that? I mean, are these people just mad?
Well, they're convinced that the war will never reach here to the United States, and their kids will never be signed up to the military. But, you know, it's not just Bolton and Pompeo. I'm sure that you've got governors from the Federal Reserve are talking to Donald Trump. Mnuchin is talking to Donald Trump. You've got representatives from various industries who are seeking access to the president, and they're all coming on in and saying, look, you know, we've got to whip those Chinese. And unfortunately, I think Donald Trump has an overly simplistic view of what trade with China is really like.
You think he's what's the word I'm looking for? You know, maybe, you know, out of his league. But do you think that he knew that this is how it was going to be?
In terms of the trade war, or in terms of the presidency?
Well,
yes, I think he's out of his league.
The government itself.
Yeah, I think he's out of his league. He came into the White House very, very naive. He tried to be magnanimous in victory. He allowed a whole bunch of Obama holdovers to remain, and he's been fighting them tooth and nail ever since. So yeah, he was
What's
a little
the
bit.
alternative?
Yeah, well, yeah, that was it.
What's
I mean,
the alternative?
as much of a disappointment as Trump has been, I still see him as having been a better choice than Hillary Clinton, because if Hillary Clinton had been elected in 2016, the mushroom clouds would already be sprouting. Anyway, listen, Al, got to let you go. Got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221, or go to the website angioprim.com.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. By Christine, great for heart palpitations. By Ann, before I started using this product, every afternoon my ankles and my hands would be swollen. That doesn't happen anymore. So if that part of their advertising is true, I have to assume that the rest of it is also. Not to mention that when I had my yearly blood test, only a few weeks after beginning to use this product, my cholesterol had dropped over 30 points. I'm going to continue to take it. By Croc, I love this product. It really works. By Brad, works great, thank you. Tell us your story. Get your Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Now, out in Washington State, they have become the latest state to offer safe haven to illegal immigrants after Democratic Governor Jay Inslee signed a sanctuary bill into law Wednesday. Now, Jay Inslee is also a Democratic presidential candidate. I know there's a couple of dozen of them out there. It's hard to keep track of them all. But the legislation prohibits local law enforcement from asking about an individual's immigration status or place of birth, with an exception if it pertains to a criminal investigation. State prisons and jails are also barred from honoring voluntary immigration holds requested by federal authorities, such as Immigration and Customs Enforcement. These new rules are considered some of the most restrictive in the country. So, all right. Little bit of good news from Great Britain. Theresa May has announced her resignation, and it's all because of Brexit. She's going to step down as the Conservative Party leader on the 7th of June, but will remain Prime Minister until a successor is found. So she is pretty much out. And Boris Johnson is out there saying that it looks like there's going to be a no-deal Brexit, which, from what I have been seeing about all the deals that are being proposed, I think that's going to be better for the British people. There's going to be some upset for a while, but Britain has a lot that they want to buy from other countries, and Britain has a lot of things they want to sell to other countries. For example, Claire's always wanted a Jaguar. So I'm sure that trade deals will be arriving very, very quickly. And don't forget, Donald Trump himself stated that when Brexit finally happened, that he would move very quickly to establish trade with Great Britain. And it's kind of an interesting little reminder that people aren't allowed to trade with each other anymore. You have to have the government's permission to do business with somebody else in another country. Why do we need that? Why do we need governments telling us who we can and cannot do business with? All righty. So the Brexit Party is getting ready to make European elections history. Of course, that's going to start happening over this coming weekend, and that'll be worth keeping an eye on there. But this may see the rise of the populists and the nationalists, and the head of the European Union, Jean-Claude Juncker, is clearly panicking. And he came on out and he said, people who love their countries are stupid. He actually said that. And he said in an interview on CNN, these populist nationalists, stupid nationalists, they are in love with their own countries. Like that's a bad thing. So we know he's a globalist, but he's clearly out of touch. Anyway, we're going to take a break for station identification. We'll be right back after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. It has been 5 years since Crimea held their referendum to secede from Ukraine, and then held another referendum to merge with the Russian republics. And we've had 5 years of, Russia, annexed Crimea. They stole Crimea, those evil Russians, blah, 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 blah. And apparently the harangue, as it were, is wearing off. And we're starting to see more and more of a sense in Europe of rapprochement with Russia. And probably a good example of that comes from Italian leader Matteo Salvini, and he basically said, I continue to believe we don't need sanctions. The issue of their removal unites all decent people. So the Europeans are tired of these sanctions as well. Remember when those sanctions were first imposed, it hurt Europe more than it hurt Russia. I mean, there were riots in France because these farmers were cut off from their market, from their buyers. And they had all these rotting crops, and they trucked them into Paris and just dumped them on the steps of these government buildings. What is it about government that they can't just let people live their lives and engage in peaceful commerce and just work to make a better world? Why is it always that governments feel they have to intervene and hack and slash at the normal processes of commerce so they can stand up there and make speeches and say, look what I did, it was a good thing, trust me. Okay, another one of our Democratic candidates for 2020, Cory Booker, is now out there campaigning, saying that if he becomes the president, he will create a White House office exclusively dedicated to protecting abortion rights. See, the Democrats are using the abortion issue. They're fanning it up so that next year's election is about abortion and not about the economy. Not that the economy is really doing all that great. In fact, by the time the 2020 elections come around, it may be very obviously in trouble, even to the most disconnected voter. But that's it. The GOP has walked into a trap, and they don't realize it yet, apparently. So Democrats are pushing for late-term abortions. Republicans move to ban abortions, even in the case of rape and incest. And the victims of this are women and the unborn babies. And even this article I'm looking at, which came out of Russia Today, is saying rekindled interest in abortion legislation is a clear reminder that the 2020 presidential elections are bearing down on the United States like a tornado, with all the expected fallout and damage. So that's what it's really all about. They don't really care about the women. They only care about the unborn in terms of plumping them up so that the sale of the body parts becomes more profitable. Okay, there's been a recent analysis by the Guttmacher Institute that found nearly 1 in 20 women will have an abortion in her first 20 years of life. By age 30, that number approaches 1 in 5. By age 45, it's 1 in 4. And it is a staggering number. It's certainly more than I thought was going on here. But people are looking at these numbers and wondering if, in fact, that feelings of guilt by these women are turning them into fanatic supporters of abortion. They don't want to entertain the possibility that they may have done something wrong, that they may have ended a human life. So, out here in Hawaii, Senator Mazie Hirono brags to protesters that she rallied 8th grade schoolgirls and boys in support of abortion. 8th grade. Now, when I was in 8th grade, we didn't even know what abortion was. It was all very hush-hush. Nobody talked about that. And so Crazy Mazie is out there trying to get the kids on board to say, yes, abortion is really good. And here's another good one. The Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, led by Supervisor Hilda L. Solis, who's a former cabinet member in the Obama administration, has voted to ban travel to the state of Alabama over their new pro-life law. Now, apparently not having anything better to deal with, like the piles of trash and the rat epidemic, Solis authored a motion to ban travel associated with official county business to the Yellowhammer State for a period of 1 year. One has to wonder just how much business officials from Los Angeles County would have in a state over 2,000 miles away. But we must make a point. We must strike a blow for liberty for women, and so forth and so on. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. So trans actress Laverne Cox was giving a speech to a graduating class and said, abortion rights aren't just women's rights, they're trans men's rights too. Now that's getting a little bit out there. Okay, she's out, they're saying that trans men have a right to an abortion even though they can't ever get pregnant. How much more disconnected from reality can these people get? That's what I want to know. Now, Nancy Pelosi, who is supposedly Catholic, is out there blasting white guys who are against abortion. So that's the new framing of the debate. It's white guys who are against abortion. Okay, remember the hashtag #MeToo? Where it just took off and everybody's saying, oh, I was abused, I was molested. I think it began with the Harvey Weinstein situation. And there is a lot of stuff that goes on. But a lesson that we all should have learned back in the 1990s during the militant feminist movement and the rape hysteria is that you can get a witch hunt mentality going where all of a sudden women want to claim to be molested or raped so they can get their moment of victimhood and media attention. Boy, if you could come up with a really clever story of how you were raped, you were guaranteed a shot on Donahue or Oprah. So apparently down in Australia, actor Geoffrey Rush was accused by actress Erin Jean Norville, who starred alongside him in Shakespeare's King Lear that ran in Sydney, Australia between 2015 and 2016. Now, Rush denied all allegations, and despite his denial, he was forced to step down as president of Australia's Screen Industry Academy following the complaints. Well, it went to court, and it turned out the allegations were false. And Geoffrey Rush has been awarded $1.9 million in the lawsuit he filed against Australia's Nationwide News, which published the claims that he'd engaged in sexual misconduct. You got to fight back on that. Not every claim of assault or rape should be taken at face value. They should all be evaluated carefully on a case-by-case basis. This Me Too can get out of control. It's been a long time since Salem, Massachusetts. We dare not go back there again. Well, Jussie Smollett is back in the news, and no, it's not because Empire is taking him back. He's definitely off that show here. And after Chicago prosecutors abruptly and inexplicably dropped all criminal charges related to the false police report he filed, the case file was sealed. And Smollett said, well, I just want my privacy. And for a while, it appeared that Smollett was simply going to walk away from the incident without anyone else knowing exactly what transpired. That has changed. Cook County Circuit Court Judge Stephen Watkins ordered Smollett's file be unsealed and all details of his case made available to the public. So the tabloid people are going to be chewing over that one for the next week. Okay, let's take a caller. Don in Iowa. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Like transgender men can become pregnant. If in other words, they were a female and they've already gone through female puberty and retain functioning ovaries, they can, and they become a man, whatever. I mean, you know, I'm not that I'm in favor of all this stuff. I'm with you on the whole transgender deal, but that's what they're talking about. They can still have babies after they've changed from woman to man. Anyway,
I was under the impression that as part of the surgical process, that plumbing was removed. But again, it's wacko. It's real Caligula fall of Rome stuff.
And the Democrats, I don't think they understand. They're losing. Most of America just are not with them on this. I mean, there's some people that have been preached to in a college that say it has to be this way, but you know, I just can't. I mean, it makes no sense, all this transgender stuff. And on abortion, my comment on abortion is, if they leave it up to the states, which is the way it always was before Roe v. Wade, they left it up to the states. If you lived in some place like Kansas and you wanted to get an abortion, you could go to California and get an abortion. Nobody's going to stop you. But what these Democrats want, they also want free. They want it all to be free, paid for by the government.
Yep.
And, that's what they're really after is free stuff, free abortion. And abortion sucks. I mean, you know, women, nobody really wants abortion. It's a last-ditch effort for whatever it is. I mean, so it's bad news. Okay, I'll let you go, Mike.
All right. Well, thanks an awful lot here, and thanks for the correction on the transgenders. And it's not like I've done an in-depth study of exactly what it all means and what gets done during the transitioning. I do see it as, I'm in agreement with that other gentleman who said this is mental illness, and it may be exacerbated by chemicals in the environment that are sending mixed up gender signals into our bodies. My position on abortion is, I understand there are times where it is necessary. I am opposed to it just being used as retroactive birth control by women who don't want to see themselves as that kind of woman, and they don't do birth control, and then they get caught and they go get an abortion. That's not fair to the unborn child. If you want to have an active sex life, then prepare yourself for it. And, you know, be very careful. Some of those chemicals out there, I will agree, they can be a little bit hazardous, but they're making them better all the time. This idea of retroactive birth control shows a complete callous disregard for life. And that seems to be something that pervades liberalism as a whole, that individuals are not worthy of respect, that it's all just a vast proletariat, if you will. Okay, when I was a kid, you've probably remember the OK hand sign, index finger and thumb together, and the other three fingers spread wide. And when I was a kid, that's all it meant. OK. That's it. It was on TV, movies. Nobody thought anything about it. It has now been declared as a white supremacist symbol, which is going to come as a big surprise to those of us who used to use it. And the backlash on that is over in Chicago. There's this high school where they're spending more than $53,000 to reprint the entire run of 2018-2019 yearbooks after staff discovered photos inside in which students were flashing the OK hand sign. I mean, this is just getting really, really silly. Okay, let's take a phone call from Alan in Texas. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello. Thank you, Mike. Hey, I just want to mention some stuff about immigration. I have an observation and then kind of a suggested action that I kind of want to talk about. One of the observations I made about the immigration thing and refugees is that it seems like it's almost like when a 50-year-old guy runs off with a 20-year-old secretary and he's tired of the wife that he's been with for 30 years, raising the family and everything. He knows every pimple and wrinkle, and he's just tired of the old wife, and he sees the 20-year-old secretary, and wow, that's really cool and sexy, and he just wants to run off with her.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I see the government's view. It's like they're tired of the American people. They know all our pimples and wrinkles, and they just don't like it. And they see somebody that they don't know, that they don't see the wrinkles and pimples, and they want to run off with them because they look cool and sexy, and it's just destructive and very selfish, and that's an observation I wanted to make about that.
Well, you may be closer to the truth than you realize, because from the point of view of the U.S. government, the current indigenous American population has become unruly. We don't listen to them. We don't believe them. We're not obeying them. And so the government may simply be saying, all right, well, let's, ramp up abortion. Let's go and attack white heterosexual males, and we'll flood the country here with all of these immigrants who don't even really speak the language, let alone are able to analyze, what we're saying about the need to go off for war.
Yes, and I kind of want to send out a warning to the immigrants and refugees that are coming, because what's going to happen to them when they've been here for a couple of generations? They're going to be just as despised as we are, because they're going to want things. They're going to want action from their government. They're going to want all these things that were promised, a right to free speech, bear arms, cars, all the things they've been promised. And anyway, but it leads me to a kind of a conclusion I'd like to share with y'all. I was watching a video in Europe where people were complaining about the immigration issue to the authorities, and the authorities always predictably came back with the response of that, well, you're just racist. You just hate these people and all this kind of stuff. And it made me think that I think that we need to stay away from that. In other words, I mean, I grew up on the border, so I understand very clearly what the border issues are, and I realize that they are very complicated. But it's just not a good place to go with these people, because they falls on deaf ears. They just cannot hear it. So I think what I'd like to see us do is focus on the incompetence of the government, the nefarious actions of the government that they will not provide for us and them, and that I think that's where we need to bring our focus, because they too easily shoot down, the stereotype that, oh, you just hate these people and you're racist and all that, which isn't true. It's just that they seem to be able to use that to quiet people up. And I think
there's a good response for that. There's a good response for that. When somebody says you're being racist, when somebody says you're being racist, you just come back and say, look, illegal isn't a race.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, that's my suggestion, that we shine a light on the incompetence of the government, saying, hey, they're not going to take care of us. People are going to starve.
That's going to take a really big light.
Yeah, well, I agree. Anyway, but that's my suggestion. Thank you.
All right, thanks an awful lot. Yeah, does anybody have one of those big World War II searchlights? We're going to need a big light to shine a light on all that incompetence here. Okay, over in San Francisco, where, like Los Angeles, the streets are full of trash. They're full of discarded drug needles. San Francisco has this program to hand out needles to drug addicts, and they're supposed to bring them back like Coca-Cola empties, but they don't. You have all of the homeless who are pooping on the streets. And so the San Francisco Board of Supervisors has just been given a 12% raise. So that's a big problem in this country, where that incompetence is being rewarded. We need merit-based pay scales. You do the job, you get more money. You're not doing the job, sorry, we're going to cut your pay. Got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. Can't get no way.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go to the telephones to Sherry in Texas. Aloha, Sherry. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind right now is to ignore the incompetence of the bureaucrats who represent us because the government, I'm going to dig my heels in and be strict about the fact that the government is us, and our Constitution is our strength. And thank heavens for shows like this where we can remind ourselves and show how important that government is, and share that fact so we can keep a lot of light on it. You know, the bureaucrats who represent us are not representing us well. And I just wanted to make that distinction. We are the government, and we need to look to the Constitution every chance we can to remind ourselves of that.
You're absolutely right. Again, our representatives don't represent us. They represent their big campaign donors, and they represent themselves.
Yeah.
And that's not the way the founding fathers set up this country. And if you look, if you actually study the government that is described by the Constitution, you will see how far away from it we have come, especially since the end of the Civil War. And now we're in a nation where the chief executive can just declare war all on his own. That was never intended. Congress has made some half-hearted attempts to reclaim their constitutional authority over war making, but they don't seem to be making a lot of progress.
Yeah, it's like they want to sometimes challenge the Constitution so they can find a way to set a new precedent and therefore somehow get it changed. Like they come up with something that is a rule that doesn't adhere to the Constitution, and if they can get that to go through, maybe they can erode it. You know, we just
yeah, we've been seeing that. I mean, our Fourth Amendment right to privacy is completely gone between government surveillance and corporate surveillance. The Second Amendment is under constant attack. The government is routinely violating the 10th Amendment, and now we're starting to see attacks on the First Amendment, both coming from Israel and BDS and from the social justice warriors, saying that no, free speech is a bad thing. You know, it's a bad thing.
That's right. I don't think it's going to be easy to change the Constitution by trying to come in with a different kind of law that challenges it. I don't know how timorous that is. I'm not sure, but I hope it never happens. We need to remind ourselves of how important it is.
We do. One of the things that has undermined our Constitution is the practice of the Supreme Court arrogating for itself the right to interpret laws relative to the Constitution, which, by the way, that is not in the Constitution itself. And an earlier Supreme Court decision, Marbury versus Madison, laid it out very clear. Laws repugnant to the Constitution are automatically null and void. But that's sort of been shoved over to the side there so that lawyers can make a lot more money arguing these issues all the way up through the appellate and to the Supreme Court. And that's why there's always this huge fight over the justices, because liberal justices will swing the laws toward the liberal agenda, and conservative justices will swing it toward the conservative way. They're not even really paying all that much attention to the Constitution anymore. I mean, every once in a while they get it right, like in the Nixon versus Washington Post, New York Times decision. But a lot of times they'll get it wrong, like the Obamacare decision. And so they're subject to politics. And again, I'd like to know what's going on with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And is she really still functioning as a Supreme Court justice, or are they just going to keep her in a closet hoping that a Democrat will take the White House in 2020?
I don't know. But you just gave us some very valuable information, at least it was for me, about how it's not that easy to change the Constitution.
Yeah, well, the only way to change the Constitution itself is with an amendment. And that means a bill passed by both houses of Congress, signed by the president, and then ratified by 3/4 of the states.
But it can go all the way to the Supreme Court if something challenges the Constitution.
Yeah, if there's a law that somebody says is unconstitutional, it can go to the Supreme Court. The danger is the Supreme Court can say, well, if we look at it from this way, then yes, it's constitutional. That's what they did with Obamacare, when they said, well, this would be valid under the Commerce Clause.
Okay, well, Obamacare, I think it was like Mission Impossible. I think they knew it was going to fail. And like I said at the time, I mean, this gets me off onto something else, but the train wreck was the insurance company's gravy train. They wanted a piece of it, and that's where the weak link lay. And that's
Well, the
why
health insurance companies wrote the Affordable Care Act, and then they greased a lot of palms during the election, and then just handed it on over, and that was pushed on through as Obamacare. Anyway, Sherry, got to let you go. Got to take another break for commercials. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. We'll plant 'em anywhere you like and blow up anyone. Whip this world into a frenzy, killing babies, dads, and moms. If you got the money, honey, we got the bombs. If you got the money, well, we won't say we did. The towers in
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And just got an email. Sherry is right about those in power not following the Constitution. They don't want to govern the citizens. They want to rule them. There's a tremendous difference there. And with regard to the continued attempt to undermine the Second Amendment, dealing with the right to bear arms, the more I see how countries who have disarmed their citizens now treat their citizens. When you live in a country and you have no right to bear arms, you're no longer a citizen, you are a serf. And that's certainly true. And remember, during the 20th century, every time there was a genocide against a population, it was preceded by a gun ban. So they couldn't fight back. Okay, so over in Beverly Hills, I think this is a good example of how the elites get to keep on doing what they want to do, no matter what. And Beverly Hills has never been a tobacco-friendly city. They were the first in California to ban smoking inside restaurants and public places back in 1987. They added outdoor venues to the list in 2007. Now they're getting ready to enact what is the most stringent tobacco ban in the country, eliminating the sale and use of virtually all recreational nicotine products, with one very Beverly Hills exception. Cigarettes are out, vapes are out, but for an elite group of aficionados, cigars will be spared as long as they're smoked inside one of 3 dedicated lounges. So entreaty support into City Hall from top executives at real estate offices, security firms, talent agencies, movie studios, and from former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. Nearly all of them are acolytes of the Grand Havana Room on North Canyon Drive, a club so exclusive its members need a special key to get on in. So these people will go on smoking their cigars, but everybody else down on the street, oh, we're going to keep you healthy. Trust us, we're going to keep you very healthy so that you can go on working hard and making us more money than you already have. Okay, let's do that. So, now, getting on back to the attack on our Constitution, a former Federal Election Commission chair is out there claiming that a libertarian interpretation of the First Amendment is responsible for more violent hate crime in the United States than terrorism. This is from former FEC Chair Ann Reval, and she's out there basically saying the First Amendment is bad. An unrestricted free speech is bad. It's causing a lot of violence. Well, I think the violence is caused by people who don't want to engage in a dialogue, or they can't engage in a dialogue, and they're unwilling to admit that maybe they're wrong. Peaceful, reasonable, rational debate seems to be gone from our society. But you remember what George Orwell said, freedom of speech means saying that which the other guy doesn't want to hear. And that's really it. If you're only saying what the other person wants to hear, that's not freedom of speech, that's permitted speech. Somebody just sent in an email about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Have you considered looking for her picture on milk cartons? Well, I don't drink milk anymore, but next time I'm at the market, I'll try that one here. Okay, so let's talk about Julian Assange. He has been hit with a total of 18 federal charges in the new indictment, and they're all for various forms of espionage, and they're all connected to the 2010 leak of classified documents by Chelsea Manning. Primarily that video, that gun camera video from a helicopter that blew up a camera crew and then shot up the people who tried to help them. Now that was a war crime. And Manning saw that and said, we can't allow this stuff to go on unchallenged. So she blew the whistle, and she used WikiLeaks to do it. Now, they still have Chelsea Manning in solitary confinement. They're trying to get her to come on out and testify that Julian Assange solicited classified information, because if she says that, it's a whole different thing. If you are a journalist, media outlet, and somebody sends you classified information, you are protected from Title 18. If you ask for it or ask for more, then you've committed espionage. So it's something everybody in the independent media needs to remember. But basically, if convicted on all these indictments, and I'm sure he will be, because we've got Judge Kangaroo already putting on his robes, he's looking at spending the rest of his life in prison. Personally, I hope Sweden gets him on that revived sexual assault charge. And in another story along the same thing, journalists David Deladin and Sandra Merritt, who exposed the dealings at taxpayer-funded abortion mill Planned Parenthood via these undercover videos, were denied a request to halt criminal prosecution. They're being prosecuted for alerting the world that Planned Parenthood, which was encouraging women to have abortions rather than perhaps carry to term and put up for adoption, was selling the baby parts. And it was a huge, huge scandal. And so now they're looking at jail time. Now, in a little bit of good news, the Teeter versus Project Veritas action lawsuit was thrown out of court. In fact, the judge decided the claims from the plaintiffs were so thin, he wasn't even going to send it to the jury. And this was so impressive, even the New York Times had to report on this. So good for that one a little bit here. Okay, John Tillin is a co-founder of Skype, and he has taken it on as his life's mission to save the human race from the destruction of artificial intelligence. Since 2007, Tillin's dedicated more than $1 million towards preventing super smart AIs from replacing humans as Earth's dominant species and from destroying humanity in the process. Now, it may be a little hyped, but there is a valid concern there. We're already in a situation where humans are working underneath robots in various places. But apparently there was this Popular Science article written by AI researcher Eliezer Yudkowsky, was called Staring into the Singularity. And he read it 2 years after cashing in his Skype shares following Skype's sale to eBay. I didn't know that eBay owned Skype. I thought Microsoft did. Maybe eBay sold it to them. But that's when Tallinn started working on it. And so far, he's given more than $600,000 to the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, the nonprofit where Yudkowsky is a research fellow. He's also given $310,000 to the University of Oxford's Future of Humanity Institute, which Popular Science quotes him as calling the most interesting place in the universe. There is a legitimate concern here. Now, we're still generations away from what is called general AI, which is a sentient, self-aware computer system like we saw in Transcendence. But computers, like any other tool, can be used for good or for evil. And we're already seeing computers that are not artificial intelligence being used to bad purpose, to surveil us, to track our buying habits, to keep an eye on us, to just mass all this data about us, to manipulate the markets. And one can only imagine that as artificial intelligence makes its way into the mainstream, if you will, the situation is going to get a lot worse. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm a Luddite, because I've grown up with science and technology. And I remember when computers were simple and fun, and a flick of the power switch would get rid of all your viruses and reset the machine back to the state it was when you brought it home from the store. I still have my little Commodore VIC-20 up there, which I'm unfortunately going to have to sell before we move. But today, it's just this monstrous cybernetic network, and it's taken on a life of its own, and it's under the control of governments and corporations. The machines no longer work for us. We work for the machines. Down in Venezuela, they're getting ready to develop a nationwide 4G system with the help of China's Huawei and Russian companies. And basically, the Venezuelan president, meaning Maduro, stated that Caracas is aiming to develop its satellite technologies. So, doesn't sound like they're quite as starving as we've been told that they are. Over at GitHub, there's a security researcher, goes by the pseudonym of Sandbox Escaper, and he's published demo exploit code for 2 more Microsoft zero-day exploits after releasing a similar fully working exploit the day before. Whoever this guy is, he's a white hat. There's no question about it, because I understand that in the world of the black hat hackers, an unpublished zero-day exploit is worth $250,000. But these 2 mark the 6th and 7th 0 days impacting Microsoft products this security researcher has published in the past 10 months. Somebody needs to start taking cybercrime and cybersecurity seriously. And they need to de-emphasize, faster, more powerful, more glitzy, more gadgets, and pull on back and say, okay, it may not do what your last machine did, but it's going to be a lot safer. Chromebook is already out with an ad for their Chromebook saying either it comes with antivirus built in, and whether or not it's going to be that effective, we don't know, because as long as cybercrime is profitable, the cyber criminals are going to continue to find ways to hack around the antivirus here. Anyway, somebody just sent me an email. Would the advanced AI computers be analog or quantum? Well, of course, they're not going to be analog. Analog computers went out about, I think the last time I saw one was, actually, I can't even talk about where I saw that one, but it was like 30 years ago. Analog computers are built out of transistors and variables, resistors, potentiometers, and they're made to simulate an equation with analog voltage. And they did tend to predate digital computers, but they have been displaced. As far as quantum computers, I'm not seeing them live up to the hype. But artificial intelligence computing will be some form of digital network. So, analog computers, boy, that takes me back always. I remember in high school, they had this wonderful Heathkit analog computer. And I was able to wire it up because there was no programming with a keyboard or anything like that. You literally went in with wires and resistors, and you attached them to these little screw terminals on these various amplifiers. And I got it to send signals to an oscilloscope that displayed a bouncing ball. There was a line on the bottom of the scope, and this round circle would start at the upper left, and it would bounce, and the bounce would decay over time. And that was about the maximum limit of what this this analog computer rather could do here. But it was fun and a thrill to get it to work. Back then, this stuff was fun. All right, getting back to the modern world here. Apparently, Apple has gotten into trouble yet again because one of the latest updates has slowed the phone's performance, and it was designed to manage demands on the battery. Consumers weren't told, and apparently a lot of users tried to take their phones in to get them repaired or replaced because they were running so much slower. And so Apple is now promising to be clearer and more upfront with iPhone users about battery health and performance following action by Great Britain's Competition and Markets Authority. You seem to be doing a really good job. Yeah, sometimes it just seems like the updates are worse than the original machine. I mean, there have been so many of these Microsoft patches that have actually caused harm, bricked machines. ever since the last update to my Apple Watch, it keeps tapping my wrist at random, and it doesn't seem to have anything for it. It just, I don't know. It's weird stuff. Okay, do you remember WannaCry? This ransomware? Well, apparently, somebody did a survey and discovered hundreds of U.S. schools still have not patched their servers. They've done little more than just put a bandage over long-standing system vulnerabilities, and the bandages can be gotten around. And they now have a name for the ransomware that hit Baltimore City 2 weeks ago. It's called Robinhood, Robbin. And they still don't know how it got in. They still weren't able to figure that out. But apparently Baltimore isn't the only city that has been hit by this, because apparently Lynn, Massachusetts, Cartersville, Georgia, both had electronic payment systems taken offline by ransomware. Greenville, North Carolina was struck by Robinhood ransomware. And this should be a national priority. Getting on back to Huawei, apparently they anticipated there was going to be friction with the United States of America, and that access to certain chips that they were buying from the United States would be threatened. And so now they have come to this agreement over in Great Britain. They're building their own chip factory in Cambridge. So far from globalism, we're seeing everybody is starting to go their own way. We got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And before we get back to the news here, if you are a fan of electronic music synthesizers, I mean, today they're all digital, but when they first started coming out, the Moog, the Paia, those were effectively analog computers. So that'll put it in context for all you tech heads out there. Israel is launching a massive recruitment drive for social media warriors. They're basically launching this to basically just get so many people onto social media to push Israel's propaganda, to attack those who are supportive of Palestinian rights. And this is apparently being led by Strategic Affairs Minister Gilad Erdan, who's also the Public Security Minister. And he was quoted by the Times of Israel as saying, "I'm proud to launch the first government program to support pro-Israel organizations and activists around the world." So there's the giveaway. When you see somebody on social media who's out there saying Israel is great, and anybody who says otherwise is a dirty, filthy, Jew-hating anti-Semite who wants Hitler to come back and gas the Jewish babies in the ovens, they're paid to be there. So it's a propaganda war. And we know a lot of people are paid to be on social media, and not just about Israel and Palestine, pushing movies, TV shows, a lot of these websites that are set up supposedly for ordinary people to comment on movies and TVs, they get taken over as well. It's a service that is openly advertised and sold by public relations firms. Now, here is an interesting little story coming out of the Daily Mail. And it's saying how this virtual reality phone app could actually help spot Alzheimer's by testing patients' ability to navigate a computer-simulated world. And they're saying that this device could actually identify the disease earlier than with the current gold standard cognitive tests. And so somewhere down the road, they say there will be a smartphone app that will help diagnose the disorder at home. Maybe, maybe not. I have a concern about anything that's on your smartphone or tablet that claims to be diagnosing your medical condition. Is it more accurate than the doctors? Less accurate? Is it biased in favor of pushing you to buy a product? Because we know that these apps very often have hidden financial connections, pushing a product or something. Anyway, okay, over in New York, they have just passed a bill. It's likely to be signed by Governor Cuomo, and it basically bans all undetectable firearms. And so making, selling, transporting, or possessing 3D printed guns and other detectable firearms will be banned under this law. And I don't know that it's going to be effective, because there's another story that came out over at Zero Hedge saying that 3D printed guns are unstoppable. There's a whole new movement, a decentralized network of self-defense rights that are swapping plans for 3D printed guns. There's no central repository like there was the last time. All right, there's the music. Time for us to take a station identification break. When we come on back, the lovely Lady Claire will be with us.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. And phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. For those of you watching on YouTube, this gorgeous creature sitting next to me is the lovely Lady Claire. But before we get into her unique perspective on the world, let's take a phone call from Lee in Texas. Aloha, Lee. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike?
Yes.
I would like to buy your Commodore. What's the starting price? Let's get a bid war going.
Bless you.
Well, the cost of the computer itself is probably going to be a lot less than the cost of shipping it from here to anywhere else. But if you're interested, contact me by email. I'll make you a deal. You know, you know what the revelation of this movie is just how much junk we have accumulated over our lives together. And I always look at it with fondness and fond memories and everything. And then all of a sudden I have to realize, when was the last time I actually took it down and plugged it in and turned it on? So if you're interested in the VIC-20, certainly I'm willing to send it to you. But let's do this by email, because the rest of the audience doesn't need to hear this, okay?
Very good. Let's start a bid war. Come on, everybody. $200. I'm starting it out.
Okay. Lee, I'm sorry. It turns out our control room tech is ahead of you in the line. Uh-oh. I think my show just got derailed.
Oh, no.
All right. Well,
Let's go. Come on, people.
all right, Lee, thanks an awful lot for the offer here. Yeah, Lee, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. And so, Claire, what's your first story?
Well, the first story has to do with Syria, and it's a little bit more than disturbing. Now, this comes to us from Sputnik, and the title of the article is "Bombs to Break Through Syrian Army Lines." Now, this doesn't come from someone who would be on the low level. This comes from the Russian Minister of Defense himself, and he's making the statement that terrorists in the Idlib de-escalation zone are preparing up to 4 vehicles filled with explosives to help them break through Syria army defensive positions. And this comes to us from the commander of the Russian Center for Syrian Reconciliation. It was said today. The guy's name is Major General Viktor Kupchislin, and he's saying that more than 800 militants, at least 7 tanks, 3 infantry fighting vehicles, and 15 pickup trucks with heavy machine guns have already arrived in the southwest of Idlib de-escalation zone. And Mike, your thoughts on this? Is the U.S. again funding, training, and propping up these jihadists?
Yeah, very clearly they are, and very
Man.
clearly the goal is to find some way to remain in Syria.
Mhm.
Now, we had this story that came on out, I think it was either Wednesday or yesterday,
Mhm.
where there was this bipartisan letter from Congress to the White House telling Trump, we must stay in Syria in order to confront Iran, or whatever the excuse was that
Mhm.
they had here,
Yeah.
to deal with extremists.
Yeah, it's a little crazy, and not only is the craziness there, but Russia has condemned U.S. warships off the Venezuela coast, saying the U.S. coup attempt seems to be ongoing, and are the guys stating the obvious? But Mike, it seems to me that people have moved on from Venezuela. However, the people plotting this coup in D.C. just have not.
Well, I imagine, there's this working group for
Yeah.
Iran, and there's this
Uh-huh.
other working group for Venezuela, and
Yeah.
they're all moving forward until somebody says, hey, we're running out of money and weapons. In the case of Venezuela, because we're talking about the Caribbean,
Mhm.
it's a little harder to make the argument that the ships should not be there, as
Yeah.
long as they respect Venezuela's 12-mile,
Right.
international water limit.
Hmm. And apparently Maduro and his army, and given that the Russian Foreign Ministry has remained vocal on the issue, they announced this week that U.S.-backed attempts to stage a coup in Venezuela are ongoing.
So,
Now, you spoke a little bit about Julian Assange, but
Yes, I
this
did.
is, I think, going to be double ungood. And apparently, a CIA whistleblower has let the message out. Assange is going to get railroaded by the hanging judge.
yes.
Now-
Judge Kangaroo, report to the courtroom. Judge
Yeah.
Kangaroo,
Yeah.
report to the courtroom.
And this person's name is Judge Leonie Brinkema, and she was the one who sentenced John Kiriakou, who was sentenced for 30 months in prison by Eastern District of Virginia. And Judge Leonie Brinkema, for telling ABC News about CIA waterboarding, told Russian state-sponsored RT they're going to try to make an example of Julian.
Yes.
He has been charged in the Eastern District of Virginia. His judge was also Kiriakou's judge and ex-Snowden's judge, and CIA whistleblowers Jeffrey Sterling's judge. And you know what's interesting about this gal? She reserves every national security case for herself. And she is also described. Oh, we're going to do the shout out?
Well, I was going to
Yeah,
wait till
okay.
the end of your story.
That's okay.
All right. Well, we're
Yeah.
going to do a shout out now
Yeah.
to our honor affiliates who are just now rejoining our network.
Mhm.
And of course, we're here with the lovely Lady Claire,
Mm-hmm.
as we always are.
And someone is also saying she is a hanging judge. She will not give him a fair trial. It's impossible for Julian to receive a fair trial in the Eastern District of Virginia, added Kiriakou. Now, Mike, I am more scared for him that he is not going to be able to live to see him actually do.
No, that would turn him
some
into a
testimony.
martyr, and that's not what they want. They basically, they want to crucify this guy.
But, there are competing interests in this guy. And I mean, Whitey Bulger was bludgeoned to death in prison. And there are a lot of people who want him dead and would have an assassination order if they felt that what he had to say at the trial was going to compromise their wealth and their power. I hope it's going to be impossible, but I'm not. I'm
Well,
not
like I
convinced.
said, Sweden has revived that old sex abuse allegation,
Mhm.
and they're now saying they want to extradite him from Great Britain
Yeah.
when Great Britain is done with him,
Yeah.
which is
50 weeks? Yeah.
50 weeks unless
Yeah.
Britain waives the rest of the sentence there. And this may be Sweden deciding that maybe they should get him back onto their territory.
Mhm.
It's a Hail Mary pass. I'm sure that the United States is going to
Yeah.
put tremendous pressure on
Mhm.
Great Britain to say, no, you give him to us. Yeah,
Mhm.
I I feel bad for Julian Assange. They're going to make an example of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yesterday, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo assured his interviewers on Fox that the threat from Iran is totally real and credible. Yeah, just like Saddam Hussein's weapons of mass destructions, Mikey. But he would not say anything about what the threats were.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mike, but if there is
Just
something...
take my word for it. It's there.
Right.
I saw it on my Ouija board last night.
Something like that,
Yeah.
Because apparently now they're sending how many? 1,200, 1,500 troops to the Middle
Something
East
like
to
that.
CENTCOM?
The number keeps jumping around.
Yeah, roughly 2,000 or 1,500 or 1,200, And this seems to me very strange. It doesn't seem to be a contingent large enough to do something if, in fact, there is a full-blown attack on American troops, or maybe these are the sacrificial lambs. What do you think?
Well, it could very well be.
Mhm.
If there's going to be a false flag attack on American forces,
Yeah.
there have to be enough of them for it to be a big enough bloody shirt to wave.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that the attack on the 4 tankers
Mhm.
was a botched false flag.
Yeah.
That whatever limpet mines were put on there were way too small.
Mhm.
They just pinpricked the hulls, was very minor damage.
Yeah.
And so they were all set to say Iran, Iran, Iran.
Mhm.
But I think they were expecting they were going to get at least one, if not more, of these tankers just burning wildly out of control there in the Straits of Hormuz.
Mhm.
That would have made the visuals for TV news to say,
Oh, yeah.
yes, Iran has attacked us. So now they're going to have to change gears and do something on the land.
Yeah, because the ocean stuff did not work. And we have another statement today from dear Adam Schiff, Democrat,
Yes.
California, says that President Trump and Attorney General Barr are conspiring to weaponize law enforcement against their political enemies.
Talk
and
about
that's
the
so
pot
bad.
calling
Called the
the-
DOJ investigation into the origins of the Russian probe, and it's un-American, and I'm going to suck my thumb for a while.
Yeah, weaponized law enforcement
Come
against their
on.
political enemies. Talk about the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah.
What do you think Obama was doing with the FBI and the Department of Justice?
He was just a little cooler about it, and people didn't know. Now people know.
Yes.
Now
But this
people
idea of declaring
Mhm.
that the investigation into the origin of this now discredited investigation into President Trump, that it's
Mhm.
somehow un-American, that is a bit of a reach. That
Right.
absolutely is a bit of a reach.
Yeah. I mean, does he have any sense of, what the optics are when he makes a statement like that?
I guess he's playing to the Common Core graduates.
Yeah. And in making the statement earlier, Secretary of State Pompeo, it looks as though he doesn't understand that he is telegraphing that there will be a false flag to be blamed against Iran.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The American people are tired of war. We had somebody who wrote in earlier
Mhm.
saying that a relative of theirs is an Army recruiter,
Mhm.
didn't really want the job, was ordered to take it,
Yeah.
in 4 months has not been able to get anybody to sign up. And no doubt on this Memorial Day weekend, we're going to see a lot of TV commercials
Mhm.
about military recruiting,
Yeah.
be all that you can be, and all the rest of that nonsense.
Yeah. Apparently, Boeing is having a really hard time. Its shares are sliding on reports of the Security Exchange Committee's investigation. Now, we all know the 737 MAX 8 had a couple of horrendous crashes.
Yes.
And apparently, the scrutiny that Boeing is facing has been intensifying. Over the past 2 months, the DOJ has opened a criminal probe. The FAA is looking into whether Boeing misled regulators during the certification process. And a small number of congressional investigations are also ongoing, not to mention the flurry of lawsuits stemming from the 2 deadly crashes in Ethiopia and Indonesia. And Mike, I just feel I need to be very vocal in public about this. Whoever at Boeing signed off on these flaws and knew they were there should face trial, prosecution, and conviction thrown into the slammer, and not a club fed. Period. End of discussion. And
Well, here's the situation.
Yeah.
It's not like they said the plane is flawed, we're going ahead.
Mhm.
They're saying the plane has been modified, but we'll sort of downplay the modifications
Mhm.
so we can reduce the training requirements for the pilots.
Right.
So instead of having to buy a $15 million simulator
Mhm.
for the 737 MAX,
Mhm.
they can use their old 737 simulators and shorten the training. And that was a big, big, big mistake.
Yeah, yeah. And they didn't turn the testimony in their favor when they were blaming dead pilots brought to you by Boeing. And they were trying to inoculate their interests from responsibility, blame, shame, and liability. And you had Boeing lobbyists and lawyers swarming in D.C. That must have been a pretty sight to see.
Well, there's already an attempt to put it out in the news that at least one of those two crashes was in response to a bird strike, although the investigators are saying there was no evidence of a bird strike on the recovered wreckage.
Were they able to get the black boxes?
Of course, they got the black boxes.
Okay, all right.
And so they're going through that. But they've pretty much established that it is a combination of a faulty MCAS,
Mhm.
the fact that a previously standard safety feature had been discontinued and made a costly option by Boeing. That was
Mhm.
a big mistake. As well as the change to the aircraft's aerodynamics by those larger engines having to be shoved forward on their pylons. And it was just it was a bad combination.
And then of all the people on who could be on the subcommittee, Rick Larson, Democrat, Washington, he got $7,000 in change from Boeing in 2018, and over, let me slow down for this number because it amazed me, over $101,000 from Boeing over his career, steering the hearing away from Boeing's corporate responsibility for the deaths of these people. And the Lion Air and Ethiopian Airlines plane, which crashed within 5 months. And I mean, this reminds me of what happened to Sully,
Yes.
Chesley Sullenberger III, after he and his co-pilot safely landed United Flight 1549. They didn't lose one.
This was the miracle on
passenger.
the Hudson.
Oh man, talk about it. Yeah.
And always whenever there's a crash, the airline and the airline manufacturer always want to say, "Oh, it was pilot error."
Mhm.
It was the pilot error.
Mhm.
So, and by the way, that movie they did about Sully, it's a very good one. Stars Tom Hanks,
Yeah.
and definitely worth looking at.
The Gentleman is a class act, and what he did to kind of use his celebrity or notoriety in a positive way. This guy became a spokesperson for St. Jude's Hospital
Yes.
for Kids.
Yep.
I think that was a really beautiful, moral, and good thing for him to have done. And let's go over to the White House and weapons. Apparently, the U.S. is about to sanction the whole world if they don't stop purchasing Russian weapons. Now, I am not making this up. The KAATSK, which is Countering Americans' Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, sanctions concept of economically punishing countries who want to continue buying Russian and Chinese arms. And now it's about to become much more effective after the forthcoming global application of the European Recapitalization Incentive Program. Do you even know what that means, Mike? I mean, this is language that says nothing. But what it's going to do is it's going to see U.S. sanctioning states that don't progressively transition away from their current multipolar suppliers to ones in the U.S. as well.
Yeah,
Now-
basically, this is the U.S. arm twisting everybody to say, "You will buy your weapons only from us."
Yeah. Now, adding a little bit of a carrot to the traditional sanction stick, the U.S. will help countries fund their new American purchases, which supposedly will incentivize them into complying with Washington's demand. this new approach represents a far more muscular approach to military diplomacy, in quotes, than before, and shows that the U.S. properly understands the challenge that Russia and China's own application of the same process to its global interest.
Poses to its global interest.
Now, Mike, I would not characterize this as military diplomacy.
No, it isn't.
It's military, getting the other guy. Military blackmail diplomacy, actually.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it is.
Mhm.
You will buy all your weapons from us, and part of it's probably motivated by the fact that military manufacturing is about the only manufacturing that we have left. But it's also, if you think about it, an acknowledgement that our weapons are now inferior to those of Russia and China. And so this is the U.S. trying to go on out and say, we don't care if they're better and less expensive. If you buy those weapons, we're going to sanction you. We're going to do bad things to you. We're seeing it
Mhm.
already in Turkey.
Yes.
And it's an insane policy. I don't think it's going to work.
And it's an insane practice that the military industrial complex can give so much overtly or covertly to these political candidates because there's a little bit of slack going on. Oh, we didn't quite make our time frame for the S-92 5000 Gidley Bird. We'll have it for you in 3 months.
Yeah.
You
All
know,
right. We got to take
yeah.
a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
All right.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75%. Dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here and back to Claire.
Mm-hmm. And apparently, we have hit a brand new low in campaign hit pieces. And you may have touched on this, trying to sandbag Sanders and Gabbard. And it seems to be the crude repeats of behaviors that helped elect Trump in 2016. And last week, the Daily Beast ran this headline: Tulsi Gabbard's campaign is being boosted by Putin apologists. Good heavenly net.
And
I mean,
they really
on.
had to reach to try and make that one work.
You know, that was followed by the subheadline: the Hawaii Congresswoman is quickly becoming the top candidate for Democrats who think the Russian leader is misunderstood. Play the violins and start crying. The campaign has received about 75,000 individual donations. And this Crazy Beast article is based on maybe 3 of them. The 3 names that came up are Professor Stephen Cohen, activist Sharon Tennyson, and someone who uses the name Goofy Grapes, who may or may not have once worked for comedian Lee Camp, currently employed by Russia Today.
Yeah,
And-
so Tulsi Gabbard is being supported by Russian apologists because her doctors, lawyers, hairstylists,
Yes.
gardeners, Sharapa, his first cousin,
Yeah,
once ate a bowl of borscht and drinks vodka.
right. You know, that's where we are. Now, I'd kind of like to get my position clear ahead of this. Of the folks who have declared, my favorite right now would be Tulsi Gabbard. She is a pro-peace veteran. She has seen military action, unlike her president, a woman and someone with Samoan ancestry. So she's got all these beautiful, wonderful things going on about her. But Mike, and tell me if I'm wrong on that, I think it's her pro-peace stance, which is going to get her marginalized because the major corporations, along with our merchant of death in chief, aka President Trump, love wars because wars bring profits to the warmongers and
Yeah, the military
banks.
industrial complex is
Yeah.
going to be against her, and
Mhm.
she's very much anti-Second Amendment, so that is going to work against her in the election as well.
Mhm.
I like her.
Yeah.
I hope she does well. I don't see her as being a real contender at this point.
No, I don't either. And President Trump did something very interesting. He bypassed Congress to approve $8 billion in arms sales to Saudi Arabia and UAE. And it was today to approve this $8 billion in arms sales. And this was reported by the Wall Street Journal. And what the administration does was to invoke a rarely used provision of American arms control laws to bypass Congress and approve the weapons sales, citing the escalating tensions with Iran as the justification. Wall Street Journal sources said the $8 billion figure encapsulate a package of 22 separate deals. Now, Mike, and tell me if I'm wrong here, I kind of suspect that these new weapons sales to Saudi Arabia will not be, at least right now, Iran-focused, but the continued stalemate in Yemen,
Yes.
which has the U.S. fighting on the side of Saudis with absolutely no end in sight. Now, my best guess is that the butcher of Yemen is probably going to order a carpet bombing of Yemen. So very few are going to be left alive. In fact, in the corporate warmonger feeds, I'm still not hearing a word about Yemen, a war in which the United States has been aiding and abetting Saudi Arabia with war crimes
Mm-hmm.
from those annoying talking heads, just about, and the only thing they can say is Iran threat, of course supplying no specifics. Now, what I'm thinking, Netanyahu wants this war against Iran to come very, very quickly. So I would say, were I a betting woman, and I'm not, the window for an Israeli false flag to kick the whole thing off, to be blamed on Iran, of course, would be any time through this Monday, 26 May, through Thursday, 4 July.
Okay.
And are we going to have to take a little break here?
Yes. Well, we've got about another minute here.
Okay, all right.
And we actually talked about this a little bit earlier in the show.
Okay.
Where NATO is basically escalating their surveillance activity around Russia's borders over the Black Sea. And it's just, spy aircraft going and even entering Russian airspace, which is a provocation.
Yeah, definitely.
And the Russian having to intercept them and drive them back off. Now, officially, NATO has 14 Boeing E-3A airborne warning and control systems aircraft with their radar domes stationed in Galkirchen, Germany. 14 of them. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's an awful lot.
Right. And the fleet is involved in the reassurance measures following the Russian-Ukraine crisis and in the tailored assurance measures for Turkey against the background of the Syrian crisis.
Okay, and on that, we have to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354. Or visit MIG911.com.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When your doctor tells you you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendovite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendovite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendovite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendovite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And I see what's on your talking points list here. We did talk about this briefly during the show, but this has a different spin on it. I'd like the headline.
Yes. Foreign aid that costs an arm and a leg, literally. The U.S. funded Israeli military is shooting so many unarmed Palestinians that the UN is warning of an amputation crisis. And the author of this goes on to talk about a friend who has an artificial leg and how lucky he is he doesn't live in Gaza.
Which is why he was able to get some decent medical care.
Yeah. According to the UN, 1,700 young Gazans are facing amputation, mainly of their legs, in the next 2 years. They're among the 7,000 unarmed Palestinians in Gaza shot by Israeli snipers over the last year. What kind of a monster does that, Mike? Targeting children, non-combatants? What kind of a psychotic, amoral piece of work deliberately targeting Palestinian kids? But you know, I may have an answer. When you wound or kill children, you wound or kill the future of a society.
Yes, you do, and that is the rationale behind Israel's targeting of young Palestinians.
Yeah, and we have another story about Israel they probably aren't going to like, but, you know, tough grapes. Head of Reporters Without Borders says Israel shot journalists intentionally. Now, this is the Director General of Reporters Without Borders, RSF. And he said Thursday that the Israeli army had been deliberately targeting journalists in the occupied Gaza Strip. Now, Christophe Deloire was speaking to the Jerusalem Post, having received the Dan David Prize in Tel Aviv on behalf of the International Press Freedom's watchdog. It is a war crime to target journalists because they are journalists, Deloire told the paper. When Israel shot those journalists during the Great Return March protests, it was intentional. And it wasn't that the sharpshooters couldn't see them. They were clearly identified cameras and jackets. And so it couldn't be by chance that this continued to happen.
Yes.
And referring to the United Nations Commission of Inquiry into the Gaza protests, Deloire pointed out that the report confirmed what they had already considered a fact. Well, Mike, I'm not terribly surprised at this. The Israeli government and the IDF will do anything to keep the truth of these horrific attacks on Palestinians from getting out just as much as is humanly possible. They don't want.
They certainly will, and very little is getting out right now. And one of the things that makes it obvious the journalists are being targeted is that the per capita incidence of injury to journalists is much higher than the per capita incident of injury to just ordinary nonviolent protesters. So they are, in fact, being specifically sought out and shot at.
And another, I thought, very interesting story about Israel. Apparently, the immunity bill submitted to Knesset with Netanyahu indictment pending. Now, it's been submitted. The Israeli Knesset is considering legislation that would, now you've got to listen to this carefully, guys, because this is really amazingly interesting. This legislation would grant government officials immunity from criminal prosecution and just so happened to spare Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from his 3 looming corruption indictments.
Which aren't looming as much anymore because the Attorney General has now delayed them for some months.
Yeah. So if the proposed amendment to the immunity law passes, elected officials could not be charged with a criminal offense unless the 120-member Knesset and the Knesset House Committee agreed to waive immunity. Now, should Netanyahu's Likud party secure a coalition and outnumber its rivals, the measure could effectively place them above the law for as long as they serve in government.
Which would give Netanyahu yet another motive to cheat future elections and stay in power until he dies.
Right. Now, Mike, you talked about the dumping of the Bucket 5 FBI docs,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I have an observation on that. This is why the timing on telly yesterday featured the nearly puddling Pell, as in Nancy, who went ballistic, accusing a Trump of a cover-up and wanting for Congress to impeach him only to be later exonerated in the Senate. Now, Mike, here are my thoughts. As these revelations drip, drip, drip into the American consciousness, I think Americans will wake up and realize who the real criminals were in Russiagate. Now, having said that, there are a number of things President Trump has done with which I absolutely fundamentally did not agree, such as withdrawing the U.S. from the P5+1 deal with Iran. And I am hoping that this guy doesn't have this country on a quick march to nuclear Armageddon with Russia or China. But that being said, I firmly believe that this information will give my brother and sister Americans just a little taste of the excrement sandwich the Democrats have been trying to force down our collective throats, and decide that they maybe no longer deserve the honor of representing the people of this country.
Well,
Your
looking
thoughts?
at how the ratings of the corporate media that were out there pushing this
Yeah.
Trump-Russia collusion story have declined,
Tumbled.
I think the American people have in fact awakened to that. I mean, Rachel Maddow's
Oh.
ratings are way down.
Yes.
CNN's ratings are way down.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I do think the American public realizes that once again,
Mhm.
we're being lied to by politicians and the corporate media.
Yeah. And now there's something bouncing around in SAT scores called the new SAT adversity score. And criticisms of this are really beginning to come to a head. There was a recent decision by the Scholastic Aptitude Test to add a so-called adversity score to test takers' results for college admissions. And officials are going to have to weigh that have almost universally been panned. Few think it's a good idea to give students an overall disadvantage ranking. Now, first, there is a conservative scholar, Heather MacDonald, who has laid out several problems with the new index, noting it's basically an affirmative action and reinforces the soft bigotry of low expectations. I can see that.
Yes.
You know? And the College Fix's senior reporter, Christian Snyder, also weighed in, calling it just another invitation for fraud. I would tend to be, I would tend to agree with them. Yeah.
Now, can you back up to that last paragraph here
Yes.
where it says,
Uh-huh.
clearly lying about one's racial identity is wrong.
Mhm.
If we go back to that scandal where the ultra-rich were paying to get their kids into these colleges and universities,
Mhm.
and apparently one of the groups that was involved with this was out there saying, your kids can't say that they're white. They've got to claim to be partially some kind of a minority.
Mhm.
Elizabeth Warren, pick up your red courtesy
Yes.
telephone. And
Extraterrestrial, whatever.
it's all fraud, and
Yeah.
and the entire country seems to be in an age where fraud is tolerated and encouraged, and all too often rewarded.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of my own experience. I graduated from college with a 3.75 GPA, Dean Scholar, and I had a learning disability which I didn't even know I had until one of those first dates with you. This is funny. Enjoy it. Mike took me to a safety-approved gun range, and as someone who has always thought of themselves as right-handed, I couldn't hit the broad side of a barn or the target shooting with my right hand. And he looked at me and smiled and said, "Giggles and grins, honey. Try doing this with your left hand." I was able to hit inside the target much more
Yes.
and into the center. And apparently, what no one noticed, none of my teachers, well, back when I graduated playing with my duck-billed platypus, they weren't looking at stuff like this. I am right-handed, left-eye dominant,
Yes.
which is described as mixed brain dominant.
Which can be a problem.
Yeah, and to this day, at 70 for a couple of weeks, I cannot for the life of me sight read a piano score cold, and yet I am a published composer. And you know what I wish for kids who are dealing with this is that they can have these things assessed like early, and worked with, along with great teachers, small classrooms, so that the learning disability would not get away from their ability to do what they needed to do. I think early detection might help a lot of people.
Well, in this case, we know what the cause of the problem is.
Yeah.
You and I come from a generation where being left-handed was looked down on and thought of as being inferior. And this goes back to the old heraldry, the idea that the legitimate heir to the throne would be right-handed and all the bastard children would be left-handed, hence the Ben Sinister and the Ben Dexter on the coats of arms here.
Yeah.
And so when Claire and I were kids, parents very often, if they saw their children were left-handed, would force them to be right-handed, and this is what causes mixed brain dominance.
Yeah. And there was another very interesting article on Zero Hedge. And it says, we finally know where the scandalous ozone-destroying chemicals are really coming from. Now, this was written by Carly Casella at ScienceAlert.com. Now, it's been 1 year since U.S. scientists reported a mysterious surge in ozone-destroying chemicals known as chlorofluorocarbons. I think I said that correctly.
Yeah, you said that correct.
My heavens, CFCs. Now, these were banned in 1987 under the globally signed Montreal Protocol. So there was only one explanation here. Somewhere out there in an unknown location, someone must have gone rogue, setting back progress in the ozone hole by a decade or more. And after much speculation, the whereabouts and the magnitude of these harmful emissions has been confirmed in scientific research. Now, earlier reporting in the New York Times has already suggested they seem to be coming. And notice we're not getting a definitive they're coming. They seem to be coming from the northern coast of mainland.
Northeast coast of mainland China. I have to say, this sounds like more China bashing. For one thing, the ozone hole kind of has gone away in the corporate media when research showed there's always been an ozone hole.
Okay.
And it's always been there. It's just part of the atmosphere above Antarctica. And that it wasn't really that big a deal. Now, the CFCs are definitely bad for the atmosphere.
Right.
And it would be bad if somebody is pouring them out in high volume. But again, why point the finger necessarily at China?
Yeah.
Because, you know, if they're doing offshore sampling, this stuff could be flowing over China, coming from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Could be coming from Russia. But I don't know why anybody would be producing or releasing CFCs, given that no products containing this chemical can be sold around the world.
Now, when I was looking at this article, I thought that here is one of the West's chances to cage the rage and engage, and create some opportunities by not screaming China bad, but if this is happening, collaborating with China's top scientists, getting the Chinese government's blessing to work with them to reduce this. And in my world, collaboration trumps confrontation nearly every darn time. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you on that, but unfortunately we're building confrontations with, rather, to be honest, our government.
Yeah.
The government. It's not my government anymore.
No.
The government is building confrontations all over the world, with Russia, with China, with Venezuela, with Iran, who knows?
Liechtenstein.
Yeah, Liechtenstein.
Yeah. It just, yes, we're seeing, I believe, Mike, a tremendous escalation. I have a lot of respect for two adults in the room in all of this mess, and that would be Putin and his secretary.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And these are people who seem to be genuinely concerned about putting out fires geopolitically, trying to get people to cool their chops.
Well, I think it's not just Putin any longer. We're starting to see a lot of this pull back from blindly supporting the U.S. agenda all across Europe and many of our other allies. And I think these other allies are just tired of the wars. They're tired of the sanctions. They're tired of being bullied because they're using the U.S. dollar. And I think in the long run, we are seeing the United States as an empire in decline.
Yeah. I mean, everything in the world has a life cycle, right? People have a life cycle.
Rome had a
Countries
life
have
cycle.
a life cycle.
Egypt had a life cycle. Yep.
And we may be getting to the end of ours, which is why, please, people, start to develop some relationships in your own community, people you think you can work with, people you think you can trust. Because if the fertilizer does hit the ventilation shaft, we have to have the ability to create self-sustaining communities, people who will barter,
Okay.
you know, that kind of thing. Another article that I noticed out of Zero Hedge, apparently EPA cybersecurity weaknesses are going untracked and unpatched. And this comes to us from NextGov. And the EPA has detailed a process for dealing with new cybersecurity weaknesses. Develop a plan with clear goals and milestones, then attack the problem. The only issue? Those plans aren't being logged, managed, or tracked, according to the agency inspector general.
In other words, you're just going through the motions to say, hey, I'm working on the problem.
And what they did, the agency created an automated tool for logging vulnerabilities that will take time to remediate and track progress through official plans of action and milestones. And according to an inspector general report released on Tuesday, many of those plans never entered into the system, meaning that they were never tracked, and in some cases the vulnerabilities were never patched. Mike, this is officially
that's
horrible.
Typical government work.
Yeah, you know, the U.S. government really needs to find a better way of organizing and tracking just what the heck is going on at the EPA with their computers.
Well,
Mike-
it's not just the EPA. We were talking earlier in the show about how most school system computers are still unpatched relative to the WannaCry ransomware. Anyway, listen, we got to take a quick break for commercials. We'll be back with the last segment of our program after these few words.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, the number 2, keep it today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AirOutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight. Women.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Last segment on this Pauhana Friday
Yes.
and opening to the Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
And Claire, you have another story.
Yes, from the Department of You Can't Make This Up. DARPA.
That actually is the Department of We Can Make This Up.
Yes, you're right. I stand corrected. DARPA is going to create mind-controlled weapons. Now, this is by, I believe, a lady by the name of Dagny Taggart. And apparently last year, the U.S. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, announced that it was seeking non-invasive ways to achieve high level of brain system communications without surgery.
That would be good.
The techniques would allow precise, high-quality connection to specific neurons or groups of neurons. The agency wants to create mind-controlled weapons of war, as vaguely explained in a couple of press releases. To achieve this goal, DARPA recently formed a program called Next Generation Non-Surgical Neurotechnology, or N3 for short.
Which tells us they've already had an intrusive surgical version of this.
Yeah, I would say so. DARPA wants soldiers to be able to control machines with their minds. And according to a press release, and this was published just about a week ago on May 20th, 2019, the agency has awarded funding to 6 companies to support N3. Gee, Mike, what could possibly go wrong with systems like that except for everything? I mean, come on. I am no scientist. I am no great person with mathematics. But DARPA, if someone out there is maybe listening to my voice, I would counsel extreme caution in the development of this technology. There is so much room for so much to go so completely haywire that it is hard to know where to start the evaluation of severe potential problems, both for the soldiers and for the weapons.
Well,
Mike,
I'll
what
tell
are
you,
your
there's an old
thoughts on
saying,
this? Yeah.
the mind orders the body and the body obeys.
Mhm.
The mind orders itself and meets resistance.
Mhm.
And I think the act of having the brain have your hands move a control
Mhm.
is sort of a firewall against the possible chaotic signals coming out of the brain.
Mhm.
Because this system, if the soldier gets startled,
Mhm.
if he loses his temper,
Right.
things could get out of control.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't hit the off switch, he could like launch the weapons in all kinds of directions.
Yeah.
So I'm in agreement. It's very science fiction-y,
Mhm.
but I think there are going to be some problems with that.
I agree. I agree definitely. Oh, by the way, have you been following this Nevum trial?
Nixium.
Nixium, that's how we say it. Okay. A former Mexican teen slave testifies as more Mexican trafficking connections are exposed. Now, normally I would consider this tabloid. However,
It is a little tabloid, but the reason it caught the public attention was
Mhm.
because of that TV star who was caught up in it.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, we're at the end of the show here. I want to wish you all a happy Memorial Day.
Yes.
Remember, we'll be back live on Tuesday.
Mhm.
And I want you to stay tuned to John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Take what you learn here, share it with everybody that you know. Please donate to Republic Broadcasting. They need it. Please donate to whatreallyhappened.com. We need it.
Yeah.
Have a happy and safe Memorial Day weekend. We'll be back Tuesday. Aloha, America.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon, September 2018. Extendivite